Okay, so this week I saw that Amazon made one tiny little change, and with that change I calculated they're going to make more than $100 million. Okay, I'm going to go through what it was in this video and how you can use it to generate more sales for your business as well. Okay, so check this out. Okay, so before I get into that, you probably know who this guy is. Okay, Mr. Jeff Bezos, the guy who founded and started Amazon, right? Now let's just get a little, what I'm going to present to you here is just going to give you a little idea of the thinking of this guy, right? And this is what drives changes like this. And this is why Amazon is literally one of the world's leading businesses, okay? So this is a quote from Jeff Bezos where he talks about, how Amazon runs and the thinking behind some of the changes that they make, okay? So one area where I think we're especially distinctive is failure, right? He's talking here specifically about failing, something that most people are scared of, right? So he says, I believe we are the best place in the world to fail. We've had plenty of practice, and failure and invention are inseparable twins. Okay, so he's actually talking about failure not as a negative thing, he's almost talking about it as it comes with a positive thing, right? Failure and invention are inseparable twins. So this is the part that I like the best. Okay, I've highlighted it. To invent, you have to experiment. And if you know in advance that it's going to work, it's not an experiment. Okay, so he's talking there directly about the fact that, experiments really, if it's a true experiment, it has to have room to fail. And then he goes on to say, most large organizations embrace the idea of invention, but are not willing to suffer the string of failed experiments necessary to get there. String of failed experiments, okay? You may fail, and you may fail once, twice, 3 times. You're going to have multiple failures in a row. And Jeff Bezos, he's ready for that. Okay, he understands that that sometimes you have to miss a couple of shots in order to score, right? He gets that. Outsized returns often come from betting against conventional wisdom, and conventional wisdom is usually right. Okay, so what he's saying is, if you want to win big, you have to go and do something different. But by doing something different, you risk failing. Okay? But he goes on to say, given a 10% chance of 100 times payoff, you should take that bet every time, but you're still going to be wrong 9 times out of 10. We all know that if you swing for the fences, you're going to strike out a lot, but you're also going to hit some home runs, right? So he's basically saying that if you take a big shot, yeah, you'll fail many times, but for the big times, that single one time when you win that big shot, it'll be worth it. It'll cover all your losses and more. The difference between baseball and business, however, is that baseball has a truncated outcome distribution. And what that means is there's a limit. Okay, you can't win big. If you hit the ball super far, you can only really score, a maximum number of runs, which is what he says in the next sentence. When you swing, no matter how well you connect the ball, the most runs you can get is 4, right? So you're limited. Your upside is limited. But in business, he says, every once in a while, when you step up to the plate, you can score 1,000 runs. This long-tail distribution of returns is why it's important to be bold. Big winners pay for so many experiments. Okay, and that's from the book Invent and Wonder, the collected writings of Jeff Bezos. Now this is really important. It's something that a lot of people don't really understand. Business owners, executives at companies, they don't really understand this. And everyone's scared of sort of losing. And they don't really take that experimental culture, but everyone says that, everyone talks about it, pays it lip service, but they don't really sort of, they don't practice it. Okay, and I'm going to show you an example of what I saw that's going to make these guys an experiment that they're trying right now. And if they keep it, I figure it's going to make them, like I said, more than $100 million, right? So let's get into that. So I was doing an online shop from Amazon Fresh, and usually I just do the shop and I just check out and everything's fine. But today I noticed something, right? Here, the substitution preferences. If they don't have the item that you pick, then they'll change it out, they'll substitute it with something else. Now before, they used to give you, they used to have one switch, and it would say, I want substitutions, or I don't want substitutions, or you can change individually the items that you want. Now, if you take a look here, that option is gone. Okay, you have to go, if you want to substitute an item, you have to go through every one of these lists, every single item, you have to click here, and then click on the drop down, and then say, do not substitute this item. Same thing here, right, with this item, same thing with the next item, same thing with the next item. Now to do that, if you just got 2 or 3 items, that's fine. But in a regular shop, like I usually have, in this shop I have probably got 50 items here, all listed here. No one's going to do that, it's a big pain. So they've put a lot of friction in between you actually doing that and then moving forwards with your shop. Okay, so now you have to accept the substitutions that they give you. And so I contacted Amazon, I said, listen, what if I don't want the substitution? They said to me, well, then you can just let us know and we'll refund the items. And I thought, that's very interesting. Why on earth would they have done that? Pause the video here for a second, leave a comment. Why do you think they did that? Okay, let me know in the comments below. Now, let's take a look at this in a little more detail. I started looking at how much Amazon makes from Amazon Fresh, right? This is some old numbers here. This is from 2022. But the revenue they had is $4.96 billion, okay, in 2022. So today it's probably more, but I'm going to stick with that number and use that number there, right? 4.96 billion. Now, let's get into a few of the numbers here. Now, just so you know, these numbers are sort of like back of the envelope sort of numbers, okay? They're not really accurate, but it's just a rough idea, okay? So 100% of their shop, like we just saw, is 4.96 billion. Now, let's just say that Amazon does 70% of their revenue through their online stores, because they do have physical Amazon Fresh stores, okay? So 70% of Amazon Fresh is online. That makes $3.47 billion. So what that essentially means is that 100% of their online business is $3.47 billion a year, right? Now let's say that out of every 10 online shops that you do, one of them, right, so 10% of the time, contains a few substitutions, right? So that means out of the $3.47 billion that we worked out of online, 10%, 347, this number comes, the extra 0.2 is from this original math, by the way. But let's just say that $347 million are affected, right? And let's just say that the average cart contains 100 items, this is just for the math, and out of those 100 items, 5 of them are substituted, right? So that's 5%. So the total amount now means that Amazon yearly has $17.36 million worth of substitutions, right? So that means that 100% of their substitutions online are worth $17.36 million annually, right? So before, they used to give you the option and say, do you want subs, yes or no? If you don't want a substitution, you can actually choose to just switch off all substitutions. But by doing that, Amazon instantly loses $17.36 million every year by giving you that option. So what they've done now is something very clever. They've actually just got completely rid of that. And they don't allow you to do that. You can go through one by one, but who's going to do that when you've got loads of items in your cart, right? So they make it extremely difficult for you to do that. So that means you're much more likely to accept, or they pretty much force you into an area where you have to accept the substitutions. Well, let's take a look into the rejection rate. Okay, now I've made these up, but still, you can just it gives you an idea about sort of the thinking behind this. Okay, if they Amazon substitute an item for you, and you say, listen, I don't like this item, you have to call in and just say, I don't want this, and this. Amazon will just refund you the difference, okay? But that rejection rate, if it's about 20%, it's only $3 million. Whereas before, they used to lose $17 million, right? But now, even with the rejection rate of substitutions being at 20%, which I think is still quite high, they only lose $3 million. But whilst, with that being the case, if they replace an item, obviously Amazon's already done the maths on this, and they've figured everything out before, and let's just say 80% of the people, even if they substitute an item, 80% of people keep it. And in this case, that 80% means that before they would have fully lost $17 million, but now 80% of people accept the substitution, which means from the $17 million, they get to keep $13.89 million a year just by doing this one simple strategy. Okay, they just force you into accepting substitutions, and then later on you can reject them at a later stage. And maybe just by making that one single move, they now are literally saving or making annually $13.89 million. Now, do you think that's going to just work this year? Is that a strategy that's only going to work this year? No, it's going to work this year, next year, next year. So for the next 5 or 10 years, Amazon's still going to be in business. They'll still be using this strategy. And so for the next 10 years only, Amazon's probably going to be around a lot longer than that. But the 10-year value of this one simple change is worth roughly $138.9 million. Now this is just one single example of how Amazon think, where they're trying to save money, make money, and the kind of, the experiments they do to kind of push the business forward. They're always, even at this stage where they are, they're already killing everybody anyway, but they're still always trying to optimize, always trying to make the, generate more business and see where, they're always playing around, that experimental culture. What I showed you at the start from Jeff Bezos comes down from the top. The way that they think about things, the way that they the way that they operate, it's really amazing to watch them, and it's quite clear to see why Amazon are killing everybody, because it's this sort of experimental culture, the things they do, the way they think about where they can kind of make this extra money. Just one single thing, like I showed you, is going to make them $138 million, and it's just amazing to see. So this experimental philosophy that Jeff Bezos has, it goes to show you that it's something that you can adopt and you can put it into your business. If you're an executive, you can implement that in your company, and by doing this, taking that experimental nature and always looking for those wins, you can really push forward your business. And really, if you've got competitors, they're not doing this, they're not thinking like this, and so this is just a really smart way. It's a great strategy to implement, and not only do they talk about it, they actually act on it. And what I just saw today, what I've shown you today, is proof of that. It's something that you can use as well, okay, to always be, those little things, they all add up and they all count, and it will help you to think like this and implement like this, and that will help you to stay ahead of your competition and beat out all other competitors in your area.